Now, Eyewitness News NightBEAT.
Well, good evening. It appears the Connecticut General Assembly is going to run out of time tonight without having approved a new state budget, at least not one the governor can live with. The regular session by law must end at midnight, less than an hour from now. And as you first saw last night here on the NightBEAT, we're marking the time until the deadline right there at the bottom of your screen. So let's start our NightBEAT team coverage now with political reporter Jeffrey Cole, who's live at the Capitol. Jeff?
Well, Al, it appeared moments ago, and you could really actually say moments ago, that there was no budget deal. Guess what? They now say they, in fact, have a budget deal, and they're going to pass this thing before the midnight deadline. Here's what it does. It gives the governor, it gives the legislature more oversight in a big deal to privatize the state's computer services, which is what the governor wants, but the legislature wants some oversight on that. They apparently will get it. The governor will have some ability to lay off state employees, something that he was looking for, possibly employees who work in these computer processing areas. And finally, the governor will get deeper income tax cuts in this budget, which is something that he was looking for. It has been a topsy-turvy night. Here's what was going on here just a little while earlier.
It's getting a little old, isn't it?
It looked like a track meet. Senate Democratic leaders running from one office to another, trying to cut a deal on a budget while the clock ticked to midnight. Meanwhile, Republicans were calling the whole thing dead. This session, the budget's dead.
Yes, I believe what will happen is the governor will veto the budget, as he said he would yesterday, unless it was improved. It's not going to be improved, and that he would call a special session to improve it.
But while the budget intrigue continued, senators took up the Sheff versus O'Neill plan to desegregate Connecticut schools.
You have to have caring parents, you have to have discipline, you have to have respect for the family, you have to have respect for each other, and you have to have respect for your teachers in the school system.
Despite opposition, the bill passed. The governor is expected to sign it.
Bill is passed.
Back on the budget front, more backroom meetings, phone calls, and a top House Democrat still optimistic.
The Republicans are saying that the budget's dead for this session. It's all done. Can't happen.
Talked to the governor an hour ago.
And
he's a pretty good Republican. He didn't tell me that.
Both the governor and the Democrats' budgets call for tax cuts. Both sides are fighting about a plan to privatize state computer processing, which could lead to state worker layoffs. You are taking a look now at the live here in the hall of the House as the Democrats members have come back from a large meeting they have had. They are being told what this budget is, and they have also been told they're going to try to pass this thing before the midnight deadline. Once again, for our citizens, it includes an income tax cut, a gasoline tax cut, and a property tax cut as well. It also allows the governor some more income tax cuts that he was looking for, and oversight for the legislature on a large private deal the governor wants to do by putting data processing in the hands of a private company. So that's the deal here. We'll have full details. If there's anything more that happens, we'll come back to you later, and full details on Eyewitness News Daybreak as well. Al, back to you.
All right, Jeffrey Cole live at the state capitol tonight. Several other bills being voted on. The Mohegans, mosquitoes, and motorists also getting attention of lawmakers. The House has voted to put off for 2 years the start of a vision testing program for driver's license renewals. This to save money. At the same time, members voted to spend $400,000 to reinstate a mosquito control program for southeastern Connecticut. And they approved the transfer to the Mohegan tribe of 2 acres of Indian burial grounds at Fort Shantok State Park. In other action, the House has increased criminal penalties against parents or guardians who leave children unattended. This after that girl was killed recently in a Las Vegas casino bathroom. And to help protect people from being falsely accused of child abuse, they passed a bill that directs social workers to give the names of such false accusers to police to press charges. The Capitol is obviously a very busy place tonight. A lot going on over there as the clock ticks down, and a lot of different agendas are being pushed, including a bill that is aimed at helping a tardy Connecticut lotto player collect his winnings anyway. Our NightBEAT team coverage continues now with reporter Dennis House live at the Capitol with this angle. Dennis.
Al, good evening. Yeah, Clarence Jackson will not become a millionaire tonight. The bill passed last week that would have given him that lotto jackpot, nearly $6 million, will die tonight in the Senate. Clarence Jackson was lucky in 1995. He had a winning lotto ticket worth $5.8 million. His luck ran out a year later when he says his father's illness forced him to forget all about the ticket. He tried unsuccessfully to collect the cash last fall, 3 days after the deadline passed. Earlier this week, the House passed a bill that would give him the jackpot. And tonight, Jackson waits to see if the Senate will do the same thing by midnight.
If it don't work out, I'll be back next year.
Meantime, lawmakers, many bleary-eyed after a long week, are trudging forward trying to pass many other bills.
The majority leaders who are running things in the chamber probably got the least sleep, and regular members got anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 hours.
How do you keep the energy going?
There's a lot of coffee consumed.
And to help provide that extra fuel to make it to midnight, a catered dinner was brought in to serve the nearly 600 people working round the clock. And it's a frantic scene for lobbyists like Emmett Riley, who wants to make sure his clients' interests are heard.
Twist a few arms, maybe slap a few backs, and hopefully things will go well.
Everything did not go well for Clarence Jackson, who will not be a millionaire, at least not right now. State Senator Alvin Penn has refused to put the bill up for a vote.
Alvin Penn has to live with it. So I'm going to let him live.
If this fails, you blame him.
Yes.
Now, I spoke to Senator Penn just a few moments ago. He tells me the only person to blame for all of this is Clarence Jackson. He says Clarence Jackson was an experienced lotto player who failed to check the winning numbers in the newspaper or on television the day after the drawing. He also says his father was not in the hospital that day, so he should have checked. And Senator Penn also told me that if they awarded the money to Clarence Jackson, this would have opened a huge can of worms. In fact, Senator Penn says his office has received calls from other people who said, hey, I missed the deadline too. If you give Jackson the money, I want my money too. Al, back to you.
It's a tough situation. All right. Thank you very much, Dennis House at the Capitol. Now make sure you stay with Eyewitness News for continuing coverage as state lawmakers tonight try to beat that midnight deadline and avoid a possible special session. Tonight, a toddler escaped serious injury after he's run over by a motorcycle. This happened just before 9 o'clock. New Haven police say the 2-year-old was hit on Kimberly Avenue. Rescue workers took the boy to the hospital where he's in stable condition. No charges so far have been filed against the motorcyclist. A rollover crash tonight on I-95 in Brantford. State police say it happened in the southbound lanes near exit 54. That was about 8 o'clock. 4 people were hurt. Traffic had to be shut down so ambulances could get the victims to the hospital. No word yet on who they are or the extent of their injuries. I-95 has since reopened. A virtual standstill in the Alex Kelly retrial as the judge hears arguments over whether the jury should hear evidence that Kelly's accuser used marijuana the night of the alleged attack. That hearing, which started yesterday, is expected to continue tomorrow. Keep it on 3 for continuing coverage of the Kelly retrial. A series of suspicious fires happening across Connecticut. These are the latest. One taking place overnight in Colchester and another happening just this afternoon on May Street in Hartford. Investigations are underway, and NightBEAT reporter Susan Raff now has more from our newsroom. Susan?
Al, these latest fires only remind us of how serious a problem arson fires are and where many of these fires are started. Hartford has more than its share of abandoned buildings that are often targets for arson. Some buildings have been torn down, but there are still plenty more.
I mean, anybody can get in here. They just have to come in with a crowbar and just pry it open.
Wooden boards do not keep people out of abandoned buildings. There have been a few fires at this vacant apartment house on Hamilton Street. Jackie Fonjami and others who live in the city's Frog Hollow section have been trying to get the city to tear these buildings down.
We're told that there's not enough money, that they're looking into it. There's so many roadblocks.
Residents have had some success. In April, a haven for drugs was finally torn down. A vacant building on Zion Street was demolished in an effort to clean up the neighborhood. In the meantime, buildings continue to burn. Today, this abandoned house on May Street became the latest suspicious blaze. 2 firefighters were injured.
Should have been boarded up, but it's a pity. You know, you have so many of these empty buildings that could be made over again for people to live in, and they just let them go to waste, and this is what happens.
Those who live near abandoned buildings fear someday the flames will spread. Many city residents in Frog Hollow have already been forced out of their homes because of fires. People like Jackie Fonjami say the city needs to do more.
People talk about, you know, that people don't care in Hartford, but there's some of us that we do, and we're trying like hell to get those knocked down.
Now, in addition to tearing a few buildings down, the city has ordered landlords to secure their buildings with locks and plywood. But residents feel this is only a Band-Aid, and unless the city demolishes vacant buildings, more will burn and more people will be left homeless. Al, back to you.
All right, Susan, thank you. Now for a first look at Connecticut's most accurate weather forecast. And I believe Hilton Kaderli can see all the way through the weekend. Can you, Hilton?
I sure can, Al. Let's start with day 1. tomorrow. These are the records that are in jeopardy tomorrow morning. Record cold is a possibility. At least we'll be close to them tomorrow. Here's what we're looking for. Overnight, unseasonably cool, 44 to 48 degrees, and that's within the range of records, or at least close to them. Tomorrow morning when you get up, chilly, readings in the 40s with partly to mostly sunny skies. A mostly sunny day tomorrow with temperatures still a bit below normal. Now, what's this about the rest of the week? Well, we've got the 5-day planner. That'll be ahead shortly. Al?
All right, Hilton. Jonathan Levin, the slain son of Time Warner CEO Gerald Levin, is laid to rest. Funeral services were held today in New York as police continue their search for his killer. The high school English teacher, who had earned 2 degrees at Trinity College here in Hartford, was found dead in his New York City apartment, his hands and feet bound with tape. Co-workers called police when he didn't show up for work on Monday. Day 1 of the penalty phase in the Oklahoma City bombing trial turns out to be an extremely emotional one. Prosecutors calling witnesses to help jurors understand the impact of the crime and sentenced Timothy McVeigh to death. One woman testified she wanted to die after losing her husband in the blast. She says he was the only man she'd loved since she was 17 years old. McVeigh was convicted on Monday and faces either life in prison or the death penalty. Stick with Eyewitness News for continuing coverage of the Oklahoma City trial penalty phase through the sentencing. Late details on a story you saw last night here on the Night Beat. 5 men are now in police custody for questioning in the theft of an FBI SWAT team van down in Tennessee. At a house just a few blocks from where the burned-out shell of the van was found yesterday, police today seized tear gas canisters, a grenade launcher, and ammunition believed to have come from the van. It was stolen from a hotel parking lot where agents had gathered for a training exercise. Surgeons finishing round 1 of replacing charred tissue from Betty Shabazz with artificial skin. This is a procedure that we're told is her only hope for long-term survival. The 61-year-old widow of Malcolm X suffered 3rd-degree burns over 80% of her body in last Sunday's fire at her Yonkers, New York apartment. She's still in critical condition. Her 12-year-old grandson, who's accused of setting the fire, is believed to have done it because he wanted to live with his mother in Texas. An anti-logging demonstration turns ugly today. Take a look. Police in Washington State arrested 5 members of the group Earth First. This after they entered a Forest Service office and refused to leave. Some of them pounded drums and chanted, "We ain't leaving till you're out of the forest." Most left, but 5 chained themselves to a post where federal officers had to cut them free. Also making news around America tonight, a train derailment in northern Florida in a swamp there causes a chemical leak and forces evacuations. Vapors from hydrogen peroxide is what you saw leaking there. Authorities evacuated people living within a half-mile of the crash site. Tonight, a hazard mitigation team is trying to determine how much of the compound leaked out. Dalmatians are supposed to be firefighters' best friends, but authorities in Corpus Christi, Texas say one particular dog may have been responsible for accidentally starting a house fire by jumping onto a stove. A cat died of smoke inhalation, but the other pets who lived in the house were all saved by rescuers who used oxygen and IVs to revive them. Dive experts say watch out when you go down into the unknown, and one Florida woman learned the hard way. She was cleaning the hull of a boat when she saw something ominous swimming toward her. It was a barracuda, and it attacked.
I didn't see his face, so he went through my arm, and I saw him. I knew it was that, and then I saw my arm, and so I swam back to the side platform, and I saw some cushy thing coming out of my arm. I guess it's an artery or something.
It sure was. The woman ended up being bitten 4 times by the barracuda, the worst when it ate a chunk of her left arm below the elbow. But after the attack, she was able to pull herself to safety and called 911. Police outside Chicago recovering quite a treasure in a Beanie Baby bust. More than 1,000 stolen Beanie Babies found hidden in a storage locker and a trunk. The culprit, according to police, 77-year-old Ben Perry.
Why should they indict me? I never stole anything in my life. I never stole anything in my life.
But then, Mr. Perry, somebody's going to ask you, where did you get all those baby babies
I refuse the answer
from?
on the grounds my answer might intend to incriminate me.
So he takes the Fifth Amendment. The stolen Beanie Babies, by the way, are said to be worth more than $6,000. Perry's free tonight on $500 bond, and he says he looks forward to his day in court. Well, it's the worst fear of many patients, and tonight there is some disturbing news. See why being disciplined for sexual misconduct doesn't necessarily spell the end of a doctor's career. Also on the Night Beat, first sex and now stealing, accusations against a woman in the infamous picture with Frank Gifford, and they come from New England. Meantime, his daughter takes a stand in a different sex scandal, one involving her husband, whose last name is Kennedy. We'll have those stories. But first, we're back live at the state capitol in Hartford as we continue to follow developments in a slew of bills, including the state budget, the clock ticking toward the end of the legislative session at midnight. Right now, only about 45 minutes left. Stay with us. The Night Beat coming right back.
Channel 3 Eyewitness News. This is Connecticut's news station.